Well, it's another lovely day and a beautiful time for us to read through what the dailies have for us today. And as always, for review, we have 7 papers, and we do have the Punch, as much as the Vanguard, the Guardian. We'll be looking at the Daily Trust, the Daily Sun, Nigerian Tribune, and also the Nation will be wrapping things up. But you know, I always enjoy starting with the Punch, and no change of the way we do it right here on Viewpoint on Atlantic TV. And definitely on the Punch this morning, the lead story reads, Reps intensify fake agency probe, gives MDA's 48 hours ultimatum. The writers will follow, House Titan news on MDA's accused of frustrating phantom agency investigation. Bianca Ojukwu summoned as foreign ministry honors Tuesday's appointment, while Femi Falana withdrew as a DME's legal representative. Looks as if it's getting hot, but I'll tell you to read that story up on page 2. Investors shun 13 oil blocks as NUPRC plans fresh bid. And page 19 has more of that story. Business economists back CBN's 26.5% interest rate decision. And why they back that very decision, page 19 has a full page of that story. Flood disaster looms as federal government wants 17 states. It's also a screamer on page 7. And Ondo Speaker faces impeachment as 21 lawmakers sign notice. And I feel you noticed that story, but read it up on page 18. Let's see if we take some others. Federal government floats 729 billion power bond August 3rd. It's on page 20. What's on page 14? Defense Minister denies quitting threatens court action. Honestly, that thing made a round early this week. And we're just really excited that he has come out to debunk that resignation rumor. Senate expands a safe school probe to tech fund and NEL fund. Is also a major one on page 14. NSCDC busts fake Lagos varsity, rescues 107 students. Oh, come on. Wow. Going to fake school, having fake lecturers, getting fake marks. But anyway, get that on page 4 and 5 of the Punch. Insecurity, Tinubu OK's Army Battalion for Kwara, which will be indeed very helpful. But you can get that on page 14. But the picture of the day is that of a whole lot of dignitaries and also winners of the 2025 licensing round at the Commercial Bid Conference in Abuja. And that played out yesterday. Well, anyway, that's the much we can take from the Punch.
Let's check out stories make a round on the Guardian newspaper. And there seems to be a whole lot of stories on the front line of the Guardian this morning as we look at the Guardian. The lead story reads, Federal government shops for investors as NNPC's $3 billion North oil exploration lags. And that is talking about 4 years after 1 billion barrels frontier basin's discovery. But you can discover that details on page 6. And still on the front page, reps called for audit of seized recovered assets since 1999. You can get more of that on page 3. Federal government's 70.5 trillion naira debt to NNPCL exposes hidden fuel subsidies, says Oye. On that is on page 3. And on page 5, Lagos State government seeks assembly nod on infrastructure financing 200 billion naira development bond. Let's see if we can get more of the leading ones still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. NICDC uncovers varsity operating 3-bedroom campus in Lagos. Well, you can get more of that on page 5. And PFIPC probe, reps issues ultimatum to MDA as Falana quits at DME's defense is on page 8. Safe schools, Senate extends probing to TED Fund, NEL Fund, and UBEC and others, and that is on page 5. CBN pegs interest rate at 26.5% as Middle East tension raises inflation fears. More of a business story on page 18. NIHSA warns of flood risk in 70 states and urges immediate evacuation. You can get more of that on page 29. ROP powers millions of financial decisions daily. As a major one on page 10. The picture of the day is that of the winners of the NUPRC's 2025 licensing round at the Commercial Bid Conference in Abuja, and I know that played out just yesterday. Well, that's much you can take from the Guardian this morning.
Well, let's quickly run to the Nation and see what the Nation has as a major one on its front page. And on the Nation, NSA in November later to ministry, PFIPC illegal. As House panel invites Ribadu, Bianca Ojukwu, Oyedele, others. And I'll tell you to get more of that details on page 2. And well, CBN's table interest rate to consolidate gain is more Chama on page 3. Interest rate retained. $500 million World Bank backed agri scheme takes off. And if you are an investor or a farmer, I feel you need to get that story up on page 2. Ede will not regret voting progressive again, says Ambo. As don't be intimidated, vote for me. Adeleke urges Ikere residents. And ADC supporters defect to APC in Ogbomosho or Lorunda. And you can get more of that on page 6. The UK PM to discuss Tinubu reforms as president to work with the new British leader. We know Barnham is around and he has taken office and he had his first executive meeting yesterday. But get that story up on page 2. First Lady's $2 billion appeal to revive equity, textile production. It's a major one on page 25. But the picture of the day for me is, let's see if we take that of Vice President Kashim Shettima and having a briefing to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the outcome of the weekend ECOWAS summit in Sierra Leone. You know, it's the 69th meeting that took place in Sierra Leone. And you know, he represented his boss, but he's briefing him on what transpired there. But anyway, they are both smiling. But anyway, that's the much you can take from the nation.
And still on Dailies, let's check out stories making it to the headline on the Nigerian Tribune. And on the Nigerian Tribune, the lead story reads, ONSA SGF disowned Adeyemi during 2025 inquiry. And that's according to Foreign Affairs Ministry, still talking about the PFIPC scandal. As reps to meet Minister of Justice and Accountant General today. You can get more of that on page 9. And above the plate name, CBN retains interest rate at 26.5%. It's on page 6. Outcry over expensive graduation fees. Well, you can get more of that on page 13. TED Fund, Nel Fund, UBEC, and others on that searchlight as Senate extends Safe School Initiative probe is on page 3. Let's look and get more of the leading ones still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Nigeria's Jimson powered markets to hit $30.5 million in 2026 and $37 million by 2035, according to report on page 6. Edo, Kaduna, Niger, and 14 others at flood risk before July 27, according to federal government warrants, is on page 4. Troops rescue 27 kidnapped victims. Fall adoption in Sokoto is a measure on page 27. And on health, eating more beans and soy slash high blood pressure risk by nearly 30%. And that is according to study on page 3. Tension heightens in Anambra State as suspected gunmen kill 4 headers of same parents. Quite a sad one on page 27. And fresh crisis rocks Ondo Assembly over alleged 44 million Naira Osopadek fund. And speakers denies allegations, demand evidence is on page 21. Africa now world's hunger epicenter with 309 million hungry people.
Wow.
That's according to World Food Security Report. You can get more of that on page 22 rather. And the picture of the day is that of the Executive Director, Secretary General, and others during the opening ceremony of the Africa Regional Committee annual meeting and workshop yesterday in Abuja. Well, that's much you can take from the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, let's quickly run to Daily Sun to see whether to have some very interesting and shiny stories for us today. And the lead story, PFIPC, CBN fingers AG on back account opening. Okay. As Foreign Ministry confirms rejecting Adeyemi's request for collaboration, Rep panel summons Ribadu. And I'll tell you to just get more of that details on page 26 of the Daily Sun. Atiku lobbyists submit records on alleged Tinubu US forfeiture case to Trump and Congress. Furious with federal government over 8.05 billion appropriation for mosques and churches. And you can understand more of that details on page 6. Let's see if we take some other leading one. Xenophobia, reps probe losses by Nigerians in South Africa. Remember, we looked at this critically yesterday on Dialogue, but I'll tell you to get more of it on page 26. And race to recapitalization. 33 Insurance may miss July 31st deadline as fear of fake news can crash banks, federal government warns. And get more of that story up on page 2 and 22 of the Daily Sun. 2027, Appeal Court affirms INEC power to issue guidelines for election. Is elected on page 4. NIHSA issues urgent flood advisory, direct evacuation in 17 states. And funny enough, Delta State seems to be among them. But well, anyway, get a copy of the Daily Sun and read up on 6. CBN retains interest rate at 26.5% amid inflation concerns. And the Naira needs competition, not protection, says Cardoso on page 25. Well, the picture of the day is that of the opening ceremony of the International Association of Deposit Insurance African Regional Committee annual meeting and workshop. And funny enough, that held yesterday, and it was in Abuja, and you can see a whole lot of persons, the Minister of the Economy, and a whole lot of other persons that graced that very occasion. Well, anyway, that's much we can take from the Daily Sun.
Trust you're having a good time here on Dailies this morning as we look at Daily Trust newspaper. And on Daily Trust this morning, the late story read, NNPCL 7.1 trillion naira energy security spending faces scrutiny, and that very story is on page 3 and 4. And Reds panel summons NSA over Fatom cancels on page 6. Adamawa, Borno, Kaduna, and 14 others to experience flood from July 21st to 27. The major one on page 5. Why CBN retain interest rate at 26.5%? Can get that on page 20. And still on the front page, flood sweeps away 2 brothers in Katsina State.
Wow, sad.
The sad one, and I'll tell you to run to page 5 to get more of the story. And insecurity, Tinubu approves new battalion for Kwara State on page 21. Months to election, opposition parties still battling crisis in Katsina State is on page 12. Fire raised 70 shops in Lagos market. Is a sad and disturbing one on page 8, and it happens to be the picture of the day as traders are seen evacuating their goods as fire destroyed shops at Sabo Market in Ikorodu, Lagos State just yesterday. Well, that is much we can take from the Daily Trust.
Well, you do know the Vanguard will be the last paper for us to look at, and on the Vanguard this morning, the lead story reads, a rep to ONSA, explain why you ignored alert on PFI-PC. Demand answers on security lapses. Issue final notice to concerned MDAs to appear. We rejected PFIPC's request for collaboration according to Foreign Ministry. But anyway, I'll tell you to get more of that story up on page 5. OPE leads Nigerian fight against digital fraud. It's a major one on page 2. ECOWAS reaffirmed plan to roll out ECO single currency in 2027. Whoa, let's see how that plays out on page 9. Complaining about 2 minutes men. One woman is ready to fight for divorce because a man is a champ. Honestly, this life, no balance. But anyway, let's see if we'll balance the papers with the picture of the day. And that is the winners of the NUPRC's 2025 licensing round. That played out yesterday, and a whole lot of smiles and successful bidders, and all of them are right there. But anyway, that's the much you can take from all the papers put together. Like I said, it's always enjoyable if you join us every awesome Monday morning and do this with us. Let's give you all the details that seems to be making the rounds on the dailies, and do more than that by letting you know that discussion segment dialogue will be next. But I implore you to just stick around and be with us. Don't go nowhere. Stay there, and let's see how I can make your day truly enjoyable.